Welcome, everybody, to the Loud and Drunk podcast. This is Dan. Pets. Is it ethical to own them? To discuss that, I've assembled a crack team for this roundtable discussion. First, we have Moses, our resident cat hoarder. Moses.
I think it's highly ethical to have pets of any variety because pets are better than humans. Humans are terrible.
Also on this panel, we have unlicensed feline doctor, Justin.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Look into the backlogs for that. But this whole question is wild to me, and I can't wait to discuss it in detail. So upsetting.
And we are Gary, Rich, and Mr. Whiskers. We are three cats in a trench coat. Very happy to be here. And for the purposes of this, no pun intended there, a little bit of a purr let out, you are more than welcome to just address us as Gary. I am the only one who can speak English.
Very well spoken for a cat.
Yeah, I've been practicing for a lot of years. Yeah. Well, Rich and Mr. Whiskers, they barely put forth the effort. They're sleeping right now.
You sound perfect.
Thank you so much.
That's both of you.
It's like the same
all four of you.
Made.
Yeah, there's way too many.
Yeah, I, even though you only need to talk to me, you shouldn't ignore that there are three of us, and I would really appreciate that. We cats are a prideful species.
Ooh, that was good.
Okay, then.
Yeah, yep.
Cue the Lion King music.
What an asshole! Appropriate.
Yes.
I never tired of that.
Listen, you're going to get us a copyright strike.
Yeah, that actually will happen.
That was too close.
That was 3 seconds. That's allowed.
All right. So what prompted this is a while back, I sent you guys an article from The Guardian. If you don't know what The Guardian is, it is a very left-wing publication out of the UK. And this article is the case against pets. Is it time to give up our cats and dogs? This usually gives a very vitriol response from anybody. If like, oh, you have to give up your cat, you have to give up your dog. You'd be like,
you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I'll give up my friends before I do that. Sorry, Mom, you're gone.
And also, The Guardian has been making this case for a while. There is an article, the one that, the headline I just read from 6 months ago. And then we have one, I think it's been over a year for that one. So 2022.
I think that's when I first saw it.
And
was
then
the one you're describing at that point.
And then we have one that is 4 years old. So that's approximately like 2020. And then we have one that's over 6 years old. And I believe, if I remember this correctly, it's from 2017.
Wow, the Guardian hates pets.
The Guardian hates love. Love.
Yeah.
One of the major cases for it is that, I think it's actually the thesis of all four of these articles, is that it's inhumane to have pets because these animals want to be out and about. They want to roam free, but you're keeping them in your house because you're selfish and they're bored.
I have so many points that I don't even know where to begin, really. All right, oh boy, the wild super liberalism of this is insane. To take animals that we have domesticated for thousands of years, and now we're just going to just let them, because we care about them, we're going to let them go to all die because they can't survive in the wild.
The practical concern is what you're talking about. Yeah, and absolutely. If you just gave up your pets, then they die. That's a sad thing.
I'm sorry, but that's just the most direct brass tacks thing that I take from this is maybe you don't agree that we have made these animals not dependent on us, but we live in a symbiotic relationship with these animals, and now just fuck them, let them. They need to be free. Free Willy. I'm sure he won't die immediately. Our cats especially our dogs.
Yeah,
I mean, cats
dogs are idiots.
Cats,
I was gonna say because with cats, it's debated as to whether they were domesticated or if they kind of the way that I've heard it worded is that they domesticated themselves.
Yeah,
that cats are basically unchanged.
Cats used to rule Egypt.
Yeah, exactly. That cats are, dogs are apparently have a unique evolutionary trait that made them domesticated.
We put dogs into true codependency.
Yeah, we make dogs that cannot survive. That's 100% true. Most cats are, to some degree, fine in the wild.
I'm sorry, your Puggle doesn't have a chance in hell.
Some of these dogs don't even stand a chance with us, let alone without us.
That's true.
I want to jump in here real quick and give the audience a little bit of a semblance of the insanity that we're dealing with some of these articles.
Yes.
This is the very first paragraph from the first article that I mentioned. Troy has a parrot in his family. You guys know how much I love parrots.
You love birds.
She gets paid a lot of attention, but she wants more. Parrots are clever and social. Vestige says she needs to be entertained all the time. Otherwise, she really is suffering. She sees a possible different life for her. She could be living with her friends and family in a forest, very happy, but she's not. and that's unfair to her.
Well, I mean,
Parrots live in a forest?
They usually live in a rainforest of some kind.
Yeah.
But it's also like you're in a goddamn jungle, rainforest. There's predators out there.
Yeah, I think that's like, I mean, if we want to like approach this in a legitimate way where you really want to like see what the fuck is being said, then you got to describe what constitutes suffering and what constitutes a good life. Because it sounds to me like what they're saying is that if you have boredom in your life that's being kind of forced upon you, well, then your life would be better if it was different. In which case, everyone should also give up their children and their toddlers and such because they're fucking bored and they'd be great just hanging out like on a fucking, island somewhere. Basically, it's just the movie Hook and they have to like guard against pirates and die of starvation because they can't do shit by themselves. Or the alternative is that they're bored sometimes because you force that upon them because it's what you think is best for them as a parent. So I would say that whenever you're addressing an issue of having an animal or anybody subject to you, really, so that's why I'm throwing kids in there, somebody who's at the whim of what you think is ideal for them, somebody that you like, in theory, if you're a good pet owner, somebody who just like enjoys being around animals, this is your animal or whatever, and the bottom line is that presumably you're doing your best to provide a good life for that entity. And then the question is to what degree is that acceptable? And it obviously varies based off of the person. Some people are bad pet owners, in which case
absolutely,
I would agree with the
yeah,
sentiment.
yeah.
But most of the people that I've met who love their pets, who would have arguments with this and
the
like
vast majority.
Yeah, exactly. The vast majority, and feel like a little bit viscerally angry as I feel about it, then the sentiment would be is that I'm doing what I think is best for this other living, this other living thing. And not for nothing, it's like, how fucking often I'm bored because I'm not allowed to do something? Often because it's the government told me I wasn't allowed to do. But not for nothing, it's like, it's also everybody in your cultural circle.
It's just fucking life.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
like,
fucking life. I would love to go out and just like rob a bank because I have nothing to do on a Tuesday. But there's consequences to that. And my mother and at least a handful of people who know me would be upset with the consequences that would result of me robbing a bank.
I'm
so
good
it's for
with
the
it.
best that I do. I know you're okay with it.
I mean, you're just three fucking cats. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
And you don't care about cats now.
I give a shit about cats, just not you.
You're the worst.
This
is why you'll never get Gary's love.
Well, this is all right. So this is like the wild thing, as you said. Like I've seen this article at certain periods. I definitely remember it in the dark ages of COVID and moving forward.
Well, that was a big point of more pet ownership back in 2020.
Yeah.
Like you're locked in your house, and if you were somebody like me that didn't have anything, you were like, you need to get a pet.
Yeah.
I got told a lot. They're like, you should go get a dog.
That's a stupid reason to get a pet. It's just because you're fucking bored.
That's why.
Whether, however, it's stupid or not, the numbers went up drastically.
Well,
Yeah, they did.
An animal, I would say, and again, I feel like to have the argument legitimately, you really got to break it down to what it is at its core. If you have, and I don't even and this is like the fucking hippy dippy in me, but like, I don't necessarily even like believe in the concept of wording it. Like, I know that like I own the pets that I've got.
Sure.
Even being three cats in a trench coat, I've got pets. I've got mice that I chose not to kill.
But like, whatever.
Exactly. But the bottom line is that it's a relationship and there's a degree of mutualism.
Yeah.
Is one of them dominant? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm three cats and I could kill these mice at any time. But my responsibility to them because of the arrangement.
So you have mice as pets?
I have mice as pets,
Okay.
yes, because I'm three cats, yeah. And my responsibility is to, basically honor the agreement, which is that I'll keep you safe as best I possibly can, so on and so forth. That's a thing that nature does not provide to you.
Yeah.
Now, which one is better or worse? You could say the exact same thing, when I implied this before, you could say that about human beings. Should we not have society because it stifles your freedom, your ingenuity, your creativity, and so on and so forth? In which case people die of completely preventable things.
While I think that is an incredibly valid argument, and I also know that you're not arguing against it, but like the point is we are dealing with fully domesticated animals.
Oh, yeah.
That,
they have
like-
no chance. Yeah. That's certain death for them.
Like something that probably would be prey to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if you were a cat and you were just like, oh shit, I'm out here all out and about, a squirrel would probably get you.
Yeah, that's what it is. I taught myself how to speak English. But Rich and Mr. Whiskers, they don't speak it. And honestly, if they don't get the dry kibble every day, I've seen the consequences of it. And it is death. And that's not fair to them.
Are you the first speaker for your pride?
Well, first of all, that's our word. And secondly, no, I'm not the first, but thank you. I do consider myself fairly well-spoken.
It's just bananas. And like, this is like, yes, it's the Guardian. It's a very left wing, but this is like the most left wing thing that I find would be like the most egregious to people that qualify themselves as like left wing. Because you try to take the cat away from one of those hippie chicks. Oh, yeah. Holy shit.
Since you brought up the being left wing, I wanted to point this out before we got any further, because there was a part before we actually started going that I was like, I'm looking for this one part of this article so I can read it out loud. Hang in, everybody. I'm about to.
There we go. Strap in.
Read some knowledge.
I'm about to read some terrible journalism. There are other ethical acrobatics involved in pet ownership. Take the damage pets do to other animals and habitats. Cats, for instance, kill a huge amount of wildlife and have contributed to the extinction of 63 species worldwide.
Oh my God.
Good for you.
Humans killed millions.
Yeah, 63. That's nothing.
Step it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them were humans as well.
Yeah.
Then there is their carbon footprint.
Oh boy.
Do they produce a lot of trash?
While we are increasingly aware of how our diets affect the planet, Winters argues that we view our pets separately. I can't be the only... Oh, my God. I know what this word is, pescatarian.
Yeah.
Pescatarian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
they only eat fish.
Yeah, who feeds their cat meat. It might not always be thus. According to the largest study to date, vegan diets are healthier and safer for dogs than conventional
Fuck
meat-based
you.
That's
diets,
not true.
as long as they are nutritionally complete.
As long as they include meat,
So
then
this,
they're
this
okay.
is an argument that I've known has existed for at least like the past like 15, 20 years when the whole like veganism thing like really started taking off. Dogs, you can get by on grain. They won't be healthy.
Yeah.
Cats,
They can
Fart so goddamn much.
Cats will literally die if they don't get like protein.
The term for it is obligate carnivore.
Yes.
An obligate carnivore, unlike a dog, so in this case it would be a feline, are incapable of living off of anything other than a meat diet. They've evolved in such a way that it is necessary for them, and they will die if you don't feed them some sort of that protein.
It
Period.
sounds like the person that's writing this
Is a moron?
Is a moron and feeds their pet like a vegetarian diet or maybe even pescatarian.
Well, not anymore because their pet is dead.
Well, this
Well,
is,
no, they put the peanut butter on their genitals, so that's where they get their protein.
This was a movement I remember probably like between 10 and 15 years ago, especially with vegan, it came from vegans, but like vegan cat owners. They're like, oh, I feed my cat a vegan diet. And like the cat's like going into like liver
yeah,
failure.
you want to talk about cruelty.
Yeah, that's the real cruelty, and that's essentially what all of these are. Let's actually be cruel to animals, and let's throw out our cats into the wild, because of course, you as 3 cats have seen this before.
100%.
Where
yeah.
the cats are just,
I can
having
say
the best-
that.
living their best life.
Yeah, the
outside
3 of
home.
us live as strict carnivores. It's the only way that we can live. Every now and again, there is like a little bit of like, like a rice grain or something that's mixed in, and that's mostly just to help with staying regular. It's very important when you're a domesticated
I have
cat.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, how much lasagna do you eat, and how do you feel about Mondays?
Are you actually Garfield?
Well, he
So-
showed up, so
Yeah.
he can't be as lazy as
Yeah,
Garfield.
That's true.
And I do appreciate the joke, but do know that he is a deity to us. So that's I just ask you to tread a little bit carefully.
So
no lasagna in my diet. I do stick to a regular, healthy cat diet. Part of the reason for that is that we are not a cartoon, and the other aspect to that is that we just make it work.
I don't know enough about real life to argue that point.
It's mostly about naps. Though
do
not
like
all
naps.
not all cats enjoy that as much as others, but the 3
Yeah,
of
I'm
us
a cat.
do. When you're in a trench coat the whole time, it's you just get sleepy. It's like a blanket. You know?
Do you get stopped a lot for being a flasher?
No, that doesn't.
I'm
going to
take control
Yeah,
here.
yeah, this
It's
is
getting
ridiculous.
weird. So what I can say, at least to this side, like I remember this being a thing probably about a decade ago. As big as the vegan, as loud as the vegan movement was at that time. It's typecast, but it's really true. You got to look like some of these vegan ladies, and of course they're cat people.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm going to convert my feline best friend buddy all in the world onto a vegan diet, which they are not built to survive.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. Dogs, you can, in some degrees, get away with if you really supplement the shit out of certain minerals and stuff.
That seems like more work than it's worth.
So growing up, we've always had northern type breeds. We've had, growing up, I had 3 huskies, and before that, a demon of a dog that I'll tell a story about a little bit later when we get into like actual pet stories. They need, especially like working class dogs, they need actual protein. And cats need that 10 times more.
I think that when I hear of a story like, somebody trying to convert their animal to their personal mythos as to, their belief system about how
That's
people
true animal
should
cruelty
be.
right there.
Yeah. What it is that it's modern eugenics.
Yes.
It's the same thing as they did in the 17 and 1800s, where it was rich British people saying that we've created a system where we will judge every single other group of human beings on this planet as if they were white people from Britain, essentially. And if you don't have this height, if your bone structure isn't this way, if your nose is this width, it means that you're in some way inferior and that you need to be doing things differently.
Subhuman.
So that you could be, exactly, yes, subhuman. Instead of acknowledging that some groups are just different from you and have different requirements. It's a modern form of eugenics, which is a bit of an extreme verbiage of it, but I think that that's exactly what it is.
If you boil it down to brass tacks.
Yeah, it's a refusal to acknowledge that other living things are not identical to you and that you are offended by the idea that they're not identical to you.
And that your
because
ideology
you're perfect, obviously.
does not match with what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So because a cat is a carnivore and you choose to be a vegan, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but because the cat isn't a vegan, the cat is flawed. And therefore, I must make it a vegan. And if it can't survive as a vegan, then it needs to die. And that is, as a cat, so offensive to me.
It's wild.
But you've also taken it to the point where it's like, no, the cat will be fine. It's actually scientifically proven that the cat will live a healthier life if you deprive this necessary nutrient from the cat's life.
Well, that was, yeah. I mean, vegans have really had to shut the fuck up a lot in the past couple of years, which I appreciate. And like, as a human, if you want to do that to yourself, you can do that to yourself. Yeah. That's fine. That's your choice. And like, we're not talking about like children today, but like it goes down through like forced veganism on children. And then like, we're talking about pets today, forced veganism on pets that cannot survive on purely like a vegetation lifestyle.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, though, because in preparation for this podcast, I pulled up a Pew Research article.
Oh, okay,
Well, I mean, the headline for this is about half of U.S. pet owners say their pets are as much a part of their family as a human member.
Yeah. Which, you know what? Yes.
All pet owners, 51 to 46. As much human as a human member, or much part of the family. For men, it's 43 to 52. For women, it is 57 to 41.
All right,
they broke this down.
But in my mind, there's definitely a metric. Like I'm saving my wife over the cat.
Yeah.
But that cat means a lot to me.
Yeah.
I might save the cat over a neighbor.
And that was your wife's cat
most
first,
definitely.
so you don't know how she would answer.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
He's a man. He could save himself.
Don't worry about such things. But your pets, they get into you. They are part of like your structure, whatever your family structure, however that works for you. They're incredibly important. When I saw these things, like these people are like, oh, I'm forcing my pets, as I understand them, family members to me, to suffer and like literally go into organ failure because you're not giving them any protein in any way, shape, or form that their bodies can process.
Yeah. And that's just straight ignorance. That particular aspect of it.
Putting the cause before any thought.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's not ignorance. It might be ignorance, but it's because they're so ideologically warped.
I mean, that's fair.
I would put
and
it
results
as
in
willful ignorance, not ignorance.
That's the best way to put it.
As far as how the animal, I mean, I would agree with the idea that when you have a pet, that indeed you are deprived, but by definition, I think that when you are interacting, I think just in general, I would word it that way. When you're interacting with somebody in an intimate way, this is a friend of yours, this is a pet, this is a family member, of course you're stifling some things that they would like to do. Because presumably if you're in this wholesome relationship with somebody, they're going to take what you think into consideration. And if you left me to my own devices, I would take a lot of like risks that I might not take if I knew that if you were opposed to it, then I'm going to take that into consideration. It's going to have an impact, and I won't necessarily live as free of a life as I would like to. Now you're on a sliding scale, this gray area.
Yeah.
And I think that when you've got a pet, that's a by definition thing. But does that necessarily result in a life which is in some way less pleasurable? Because I mean, the alternative that they're talking about is very much so just a life in the wild thing, which I agree has a tremendous amount of freedom. It's the ultimate amount of freedom. And the freedom that correlates to is that you will will not live nearly as long as you would in so-called captivity. But the same thing is true for all of us who live in this modern society. We could all just go and live in the woods, and just deal with everything on our own as more or less individuals. And you would not live a very long life. You would die, for you human beings, you would be dead at around like 30 or 40. And many people would call that cruel.
You would be lucky to make it to 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Wolf could get you, the cold will get you.
Yeah. So then you're being cruel to yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to define what constitutes, what's the right amount of freedom versus the right amount of safety, because that's really what it comes down to. And so, like, for example, using myself as an example, with the mice that I keep, I try and give them the right amount of enjoyment, of pleasure, and so on and so forth. A little bit of, I leave cheese out, I'll hide it all around the room. They get to go and look for it. But if they get to go and like scavenge for, roaches in a basement somewhere where there's also traps set for them, no, they don't get to do that. They don't get to enjoy that level of freedom. Instead, it's this faux freedom that I've provided to them, this game essentially to entertain them. But what they do get is a long life. They get a good meal every day, so on and so forth. And they get a lot of love. And I think that's, you really have to judge that on a per basis.
He's doing it again.
I'm just so not used to talking to a cat.
Yeah.
I know it's unusual. There's not many of us. Yeah, most cats, in fairness, choose not to learn to speak your disgusting language. But I am one of the people who is, able to kind of bridge this gap.
I appreciate the work you've done.
Yeah,
and I appreciate you showing up to have this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, we cats need translators. Somebody's got to do the dirty work here.
Yeah.
I know that you humans aren't doing it.
No, we absolutely will not.
I know we've been talking mostly about dogs and cats when we've been talking about this.
Well, yes.
The first paragraph I read was about a parrot, and I've actually seen this. Like, I know, like later on in the article, they mentioned like parrots get so bored that they will rip out their feathers. I've seen this firsthand because my mom's owned birds since I was
stress
a child.
reaction.
Yeah, it's a stress reaction because they are locked up. You can't keep those things like around.
I also, as a quick interstitial, like there are the paradigm like type of pets, like your cats, your dogs, and stuff like that. But like to have a creature that flies and to keep it in a cage
does seem a
seems
little
insane to me.
Also, why would you what joy is there in a bird?
I can say, I've been struggling with that idea for 30 years. I will say that at least for on my end, for my mom, she does let the birds out. She lets the birds out all the time, lets them, their wings are clipped so they can't go very far.
Right.
But the thing is, they still can, and they're tropical birds. And if they got outside and they stayed outside for a significant amount of time, they're dead.
Yeah.
Even if they don't get plucked off by a predator.
And I think that there is very much so like an argument there in terms of, that this particular animal, in this case, this animal can fly. It's used to covering a long distance. You're still talking about a concept of freedom that you require to feel content.
Yeah.
As a cat, I think that all birds should be free because I love to eat. But it really does vary based off of the circumstances. And to a degree, and again, I think that even as human beings, you could acknowledge that there's these freedoms that lack in your own life that they're simply not provided to you. They're not available. And yet, how would you judge that? Are you being stifled? Is it better off living in the woods and having to, eat whatever you can find and presumably dying at, 30 or whatever the case may be?
I know these articles have been frustrating for us to go through, and the very premise is stupid. We can actually, to a degree, kind of steelman their argument because there are pets. I've already mentioned parrots, but there are pets that are kind of stupid to have that as a pet. Probably shouldn't be a pet. I'm going to go with birds because I hate birds. You guys have any?
I too hate birds, Dan.
For different reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning into things I've never had because I've only ever had dogs and only until recently had a cat. But I had friends that had weird pets and those, they're rodents. What are they?
The chinchillas?
Well, I've had friends that have had rats,
Ferrets?
full-on rats.
We used to have some rats.
I had friends that had, hamsters.
Okay.
And friends that have had, let's
guinea
call all
pigs?
sorts of rodents.
Yeah.
And my interactions with these pets, for me, have not been good. Largely just bitten hands and not understanding.
That's why you got to bite first.
I know that now. As a 7-year-old, I didn't. But there are obvious animals that we as humans over thousands of years have had a hand in domesticating down, arguably too much in a lot of degrees, but that we have made to be sympathetic creatures to us.
I would say that with the majority of the creatures that we call domesticated, we kind of touched upon it before, as far as cats go, most of the animals that humans keep are considered to be domesticated. That is to say that humans did something with these species that led to them being very comfortable with people.
Yes.
For the most part, they were already herd animals that were, I guess, quick to adapt to that. The argument is that cats were naturally inclined towards domesticating themselves because of the advantage. Naturally, it's an argument I agree with.
They show themselves. My opinion of cats, and this is, I'm a new cat owner. Well, for the past, whatever. You guys know. But they have selectively domesticated themselves in presentation to us.
Yeah. We cats are mostly...
It's a sympathetic relationship.
Exactly. We're pretty much unchanged from the noble field cat, of 40,000 years ago. The genetics are the same.
Yes.
And the behavior is the same. And it's merely that the relationship is much closer now. You've got another situation like dogs, where they evolved from wolves.
And been bastardized down.
Well, that was a selective adaptation.
Yes. Right, exactly, yeah. Dogs have had a lot of, or rather wolves have had so many things bred out of them by selective breeding to make them much less aggressive, because obviously a wolf is a very dangerous animal that it's hard to anticipate its next action.
But the common ancestor from that was already a wolf that had, I think, Williams
syndrome.
Yes, exactly right.
Which is like, what would you even call that? It's like an autistic kind of thing.
It was on the spectrum.
Yeah, it's a wolf that desires to be around its own predators in a friendly type of way.
Yeah.
Which is a deficiency until you meet humans that say, we're going to make you the dominant species on the planet.
Yeah.
And now that became the dominant trait. And then you've got other animals that were already herd animals and such, where, it's hard to say what's going on in the head right there, but they lend themselves towards that. And for the most part, at least when you look at, throughout human history, these animals benefit they benefit in terms of, if you look at evolution that way, that it's how many of you are there, how are you able to procreate and make more of yourself, which is really what evolution seems to favor. Then humans benefit these animals. There's more cows in the world than there's ever been.
Oh, absolutely. They would not exist in such numbers.
Are they living good lives? That's a totally different story.
That's a different question altogether.
But evolutionarily speaking, then they are benefiting.
I can think of an animal, by the way, that we haven't mentioned that I think is also a pretty, probably a pet you shouldn't have. Snake.
Oh.
Because it's just like
I've never had one, but please say what you're going to say.
When I was in the service, one of my buddies had a pet snake, and you just had to bring it out and just let it crawl around. You can't have the snake if you can't have it get out in the house, then it's probably not a good pet to have. Because if the snake gets out, I'm like, might kill you because it's a snake and it will strangle you to death.
So I've never had snakes. I've had cousins that have lived with me for periods of time that had. I remember one had a ball python. And with my own, and I distinctly remember my brother's interactions with just the natural snakes around here, your garden snakes and king snakes and shit like that. Lizards are a weird thing with me because you're putting them in any normal person that unless they have a giant house, has their reptiles in a 2 foot or typically 18 inches by 3.5 feet long footprint enclosure.
I think that that's very merited, that some species can live in the same exact environment as a human can, and some species can't.
Yes.
And that should absolutely have some sort of a weight in terms of whether it's right to keep them further confined within your own space because they can't live there. You could say the same thing about having a fish tank. Is that right? Because you're confining them to,
that is exactly right. And I think most people consider fish tanks benign for whatever.
But and then you get into the question of what space is too small. At what point is it unfair? Because not for nothing as human beings, again, if you go back long enough, then you would have hundreds of miles that were yours, yours and your clans. And you would patrol those and go out and you would move around and never have...
Genesis of us, we just roamed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now you very much so live in a single house, which is stationary. You don't pick it up and bring it with you places. You live in a town, you pay your taxes there. So you've very much so been, demobilized in this way. And I do think that people kind of look at that as a lack of freedom, but we don't look at it necessarily as this thing that we need need to, certainly what these people are saying in the article, where we should more or less kill ourselves, rather than, live in a suburban house and pay taxes. I don't think that that's what anybody's doing. Otherwise we would, so in other words, we do make that sacrifice and we think that that's the better of the two options. So you have to, I would assume that any one of these animals that is rational would arrive at the same conclusion. You get more out of it than you would with the contrary.
There is also something else here. The kind of intelligence level of a given pet, say like fish. So you have, and I'm not saying it's good, right or wrong, whatever. Do your fucking thing. Especially with like fucking goldfish, which are like the dumbest fucking things on the fucking planet. Like whatever. I don't have fish, but if you have fish, whatever. I hold fish very different than I hold like a cat.
Yeah. I would do the same thing. I used to have frogs. I love the frogs, but at the end of the day, it's not like you pet the frog. It's not like your pet like you would a dog. Like a dog jumps on your lap.
Doesn't show affection.
I'll draw contrary with that.
Yeah.
As someone who visits a fish pond very frequently, which is populated by 5 goldfish, what I can tell you is that those...
Is it to eat them?
I'm hunting. Yes, I am hunting. But the bottom line is, and I can say this as a hunter, is that they are more intelligent than many humans that I have met. I can't say most, but more intelligent than many. And it's actually the concept of a shorter memory than a goldfish and things like that. I've read a little bit about it.
Which is also like scientifically not right. So.
Yeah, it's not true. Yeah, as a cat who can speak and read, I have read a little bit about this, and it's a misnomer. In fact, goldfish can pick out people's individual voices, even through like frozen water and things like that. They've evolved in such a way that they can recognize all these things. Now, how they respond, that's a different story, and that's why people
I think that's where people get lost.
Exactly. Yeah, it appears because they're not reacting the same way as you, humans with so much hubris, that surely they must not be as intelligent. But the reality of it is that as far as the people that I've met in my, I'm working on 8 lives now, so, burning down that candle, many people are very, very stupid. And so if you were to just do a comparison based on that instead of on the averages, then what happens when you find a goldfish that's smarter than this particular individual living in XYZ? I feel like that changes the entirety of the equation then. So then how do you judge the intelligence of these individual animals? Because indeed there are animals they exhibit intelligence in just a very different way. And you could extrapolate it a little bit further. And while I know that it is not a fish, but it's something that's studied highly now, you've got killer whales and things like that no doubt exhibit more problem-solving ability than your average human being.
If I can interject a foil right here in this moment. So we were talking about animals we've domesticated down that would have a hard time surviving in the wild. I kind of feel like if you're dealing with your reptiles and your fish, if you put them into a copacetic environment, they'll fucking survive.
That's very true.
Most likely.
If they have the physical resources, then they're fine. Humans can't say the same these days.
No.
Yeah.
I think the definition of what should be a pet would be the charisma of the animal or the characteristics that it displays.
If that dog ain't got no riz, he ain't my pet.
Yeah, it's like of course nobody wants like a mean dog.
Yeah.
So you go,
But also, like, if we release all our pets today, I'm sorry, all your chihuahuas, all your fucking pugs, all your fucking little fucking dogs are dying within weeks.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing about cats that I'll throw in here.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact name of the parasite that I'm about to describe. Though I
used to know it. I can't remember.
You might be able to look this one up. But one of the reasons for cats' dominance on this planet for so long is because we've cultivated this individual parasite, which is actually found in our shit. And
I think we talked about
we
this.
did talk about this ages ago.
I listened to that podcast, actually. That was a good one. It's part of the reason I'm here
for this.
That parasite, which we've harvested essentially, it compels humans to want to be around us. So I mean, if we want to really sit back here on this podcast, and I'll admit, we cats don't know how to make microphones or do any of these things that you guys have got here.
We've tried having cats be associate producers.
In fairness,
I
know Furious George personally, and that's not a great example. He does have Down syndrome, and it's rude of you to use that against us.
Very
He has a disorder. Yeah,
He was on loan from the Ark.
The bottom line is that this is an evolutionary trait which was built in, and it does raise that that question of, if we're going to talk about comparing, intelligence levels and why humans might quote unquote choose the pets that they choose, well, then I would beg this argument that indeed cats didn't need to be chosen because we chose to create a biological organism which would tell you that you wanted to be around cats. So who's smarter now?
Quick interjection, it's toxoplasmosis.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Stupid brain.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Could you give the audience a little bit on that?
So the toxoplasmosis thing, it's in the cat's urine. And it's like a pheromonal attractant to rats. And that's at its base level, like where they think the genesis of what this evolutionary thing is. But it also affects humans.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we could grow ears on rats.
No.
I don't think that is in any shape, way, or form accurate.
It causes a certain recklessness and like free abandon in humans.
Well, it does the same thing with rats and mice, too, because it makes them, I believe, sexually aroused by cat urine.
Yes, it is.
It causes an affinity.
Yeah.
Yes.
It causes an affinity.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's so they're attracted to the urine. They go where the urine is, and then
all of a sudden you see a tiny little apex predator that's got 4 sets of claws and big teeth that can jump very far and so on and so forth. And it should be threatening in some way, shape, or form.
But instead you think, I might want to fuck that.
Yeah. Or just hang out with it. Yeah. Make it a friend, that type of thing. So then it begs the question of, back to that statement of that maybe we judge pets based off of, how we interact with them and so on and so forth. Well, in that case, the cat made humans the pets.
Well, that is literally in a chemical way, yes. That's why I hold cats in a different... We have domesticated dogs and canines.
Yeah.
Cats, I feel like, saw an opportunity and got in on it.
Yeah.
either way, they're getting their shit picked up by us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good life.
Yeah.
Trench coat or not, we get by.
Yeah. Which actually, since we're talking about intelligence, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before. I know we did like a whole episode about my mom's Westie a few months back passing away. On the note of intelligence, there was one moment where I'm at my mom's house. I think I'm watching a hockey game. Both dogs love me. Both dogs want my attention, but one's clearly bigger than the other one because one's a Westie and one's a Staffordshire Terrier.
Oh, yeah. Different.
And so the Staffordshire Terrier, bad lap dog. Tries to sit on my lap. She's
no.
bad at it. She's just digging her elbow.
Brutish. Brutish.
I'm just like, you are awful at this, sweetheart. And then, the Westie wants my attention, wants to be on my lap. He's a good lap dog. He could sit on my lap, right? But he can't beat her. She's just like, get the fuck off the couch. And so what he does, I'm like, well, I can't beat her because she's bigger, younger, and stronger than I am. He goes to the little bin of toys that they have.
Uh-huh.
And he grabs this rope and just starts going.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's like, oh shit, we're playing. Jumps off the couch, goes to grab the rope. He drops it.
Of course.
As soon as she picks it up and then gallops right onto my lap and I'm like, son of a bitch, you deserve the pets you're about to get because that was a baller move.
Like, this whole article is annoying. If you really feel this way, like, really address your own personal problems. And, like, you got stuff to work through.
Written by idiots for idiots.
But, like, if we're going to talk about our pets, as you know, everybody here knows that, like, I have a cat now. And, like, this was very new to me. And I've had to do a lot for this cat. And Melvin is the greatest and also the biggest bastard in the face of this planet.
Like any good cat.
Love him dearly. Like, he's a proper cat. I grew up with not like cute dogs, but like working class dogs.
Okay.
So our first dog, when I was very young, was an American Eskimo. If you're not familiar, they look like a beautiful little white puffball. Colloquially in the neighborhood, our dog, Cody, was known as the White Devil. So American Eskimos were bred in the upper regions, pretty much like cross between like Alaska and Russia. So like there is like a legitimate like both sides of the Bering Strait before that shit closed up.
Yeah,
They existed on both sides.
10,000 years or more.
Yes, but they were essentially raised for two diametrically opposed different things. To be circus performers, because, you tell your dog to sit and you tell your dog to, like, stand up, whatever, and they have their paws down, whatever. American Eskimos have their paws straight up in the air.
Oh, that's funny.
I was about to make a really racist joke, but then I stopped myself. They are incredibly territorial. So they were large on the Russian side, like in the far Siberian side, were used as guard dogs because they are mean as fuck. Super mean. Kind of cute, super mean. Throughout the time we had them, I had them since, I guess, we'll say like 5 to about 13. Never could have a friend over around the dog. Had my best friend that lived right around the corner, could never be around the dog. And once or twice walked into the backyard not knowing Cody was there. And Cody, he knew like sometimes we'd have him on a line. He knew exactly the mark he could get to.
yeah.
So like my best friend growing up, Jeff, would walk into the backyard, and as soon as he got in, like Cody got him on like literally the tips of his fingers at times because he knew that line. But that dog got distemper, lost his mind, and tried to kill my father one day. Literally tried to grab onto my father's throat. We had to put him down. That day was very sad, as vaguely as I remember it. And then we took our journey into huskies. We rescued one off a military base that's about a half hour away from us. And then huskies are not good solo dogs because our first husky, Zeus, beat the ever-living shit out of me. Truly, beat the fucking shit out of me. So they're like, well, you know, huskies are pack dogs. So we got a second husky, a very docile husky from a group that deals with these type of things. And that was perfect because she was very subservient. So like there is a hierarchy to pack dogs. These are dogs that could kind of survive. They still have enough of like the instincts. The dogs that look closest to wolves are the ones that are the least bred down from that.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's the same amount of time between a husky, a Malamute, a wolf, and your fucking shitty-ass pug that's choking every hour of the day. But, like, then we eventually had to get another husky, and then, like, there's true dichotomy, and they're trying to bring you into it.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
It is a very slippery fucking slope. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up around working-class dogs. Now, I've had friends that have had especially pugs.
No.
Yeah, they're gross.
And, like, they're choking on their own air just in everyday asthma. Forget it when they fall asleep.
They're 90% snot.
Yeah, I feel bad for those dogs. Those and like Frenchies, French
Oh,
bulldogs.
yeah.
They all have like the same breathing problem because they've been so inbred for so long.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
they're
were
inbred. That's all that it is.
for aesthetic.
Yeah.
As to their own
And what
survivability.
aesthetic, because they are ugly as sin.
I never found like I hate dissing dogs. I love dogs, but those dogs are ugly. I can't get behind them.
they're
But they're bred to be unique looking.
Yes.
And then people who can afford it, they want a dog that nobody else has got.
And then the whole
unfortunately, the animal is the one that suffers.
Frenchies, I think, are the most expensive dog to adopt or whatever.
Are they?
Yeah.
I
They
believe
can
so.
be. They absolutely can be. And the thing became, and this is another point where I get to really like dig into fuck the French, but like the French did most of this.
Oh, yeah.
The designer dogs.
They had the aristocracy
especially
to do it.
Your teacup style dogs. Fuck you, French fucks. But yeah,
stick to your
those dogs are not. And there's other things like the fucking Chihuahua. Like the Chihuahua is like, god damn it.
It's just a fancy form of having a rat.
It's actually really funny too because I've looked into the stats for pit bulls.
Yes.
Pit bulls are notorious for like biting people and like causing injury and all that.
Well,
stuff.
they're fucking
They're-
ground hunting dogs.
Yeah. But like the reason I bring it up is because you mentioned Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
Chihuahuas are actually bite people more frequently.
Yes.
But the reason pit bulls are considered more dangerous is because they're like
bigger.
The bite
You
is
will
strong.
get mauled by them. If a pit bull bites you, you're gonna get mauled.
Yeah.
If a Chihuahua bites you, then it's just like a shit. I just got.
It's one
gonna get
it's
pissed
one
off.
bite and
Yeah.
they stop
Yeah.
and wait. Yeah.
Like, listen, I can breathe some air into something. Like, listen, I know we always dance around what I do. We all know what I do. I deliver mail. I'm a mailman. I can say that right now.
What?
So if we're gonna talk about the shittiness of dog breeds,
Yeah.
those little rat bastards
Yeah.
are the fucking worst.
They have such a freaking complex. I've encountered
They're insecure.
Jack Russell Terriers.
Yeah.
And those
Yeah.
things, if you just walk past them, they're biting their pant leg, and I'm like, buddy, like I thought you just wanted to read books. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I've worked in the fucking ghettos.
wishbone.
I've worked in the fucking nicest part of this fucking state. I've had one problem with a pit bull in 20 fucking years. I've had innumerable problems with little shit bastard dogs.
Yeah. That goes to the pit bull thing, at least. That goes to shitty owners.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
it's definitely
yeah,
shitty odor.
yeah,
I have a pit bull, and that thing thinks he's a cat. Like, he'll jump on your lap. It doesn't matter who you are. You can come in with, with a gang of people, and they could all have knives and guns and threaten our lives. He will play or want to play with these strangers and not stop. Like, he'll be annoying, and they'll probably kill him just to get him out of the way. But like, he just wants attention, and the only way he's really going to hurt anyone is by sitting on your lap and putting his face right in front of you, because his breath is god awful. Because we have 7 cats. He also thinks he's a cat because he was raised with cats, and he also loves eating their shit.
I was about to say he's got a constant supply of
Yeah.
cat shit.
There's just so it's like
Getting those
I don't.
minerals.
I think the cats have learned of this and have just started straight up shitting in his mouth instead of going to the litter box. Because that like we brush his teeth, we give him these dental treats that are supposed to help.
Oh yeah,
No,
yeah.
nothing.
No.
Nothing.
No.
It smells like fucking New York in the summer.
Oh man, that's visceral.
It's disgusting.
My first encounter with a pit bull was back when I was a kid. My mom was staying with somebody and he had a pit bull. And he had a fucked up game called Foot to the Head, where,
It's fucked up.
where he would put a boot on and just start kicking this dog in the head. And the dog obviously would start snapping at this person. I never realized until I was much older. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because that's not a game.
No,
it's not a game.
No, that's
It's
just
just abuse. It's just dog abuse. And I remember being so afraid of that dog because I was like, first of all, I feel bad for the dog because it's getting kicked in the fucking head
Of course.
with a boot on.
Yeah.
Even as a cat, I feel that way.
Yeah. But also, that has to, first of all, pit bulls already have a tendency to lean, like they get dementia and they get it kind of
Yeah.
They do. They do.
So if
yeah.
you're kicking this poor dog in the head, that's gonna come faster. So
Yep.
it's not gonna know, like, oh, maybe don't maul the 9-year-old. And I was like, I'm not gonna fuck with that dog. That
we
dog's
have-
got battle scars.
we as like humans have really fucked dogs up bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like this like whole thing to like we can't take that back, so we're kind of stuck with the problem we've created.
It'll solve itself.
Although they want to ban pit bulls, I think they've banned them in Kansas City.
They have in some places.
Yeah,
Which
fuck
to me
Kansas
is-
City.
Which is just fucking ridiculous to me because it's not the goddamn breed's fault.
every couple of decades, as a cat who can read, they ban a different type of dog.
They do. Yeah.
Because it's the problem dog. It was German Shepherds once.
Yeah.
Now it
Yeah.
isn't. Now they're nice dogs.
Oh no, they're
And
in
it's gone-
vogue.
Exactly, yeah. And it's gone through a variety of different dogs, and right now it just happens to be that dog.
Yeah.
And in a few more years, it'll be a different dog.
Hopefully it's a Chihuahua, because stop that.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I'll
they
give you
fit
some
like a
fucking
purse.
numbers here. Like for my job, there are like certain dogs you watch out for, and pit bulls aren't even on that fucking list.
They are territorial.
They
I
are.
do know that.
But like,
female
we're
pits.
more worried about dogs like Akitas.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
They're
they-
aggressive.
Yeah.
My dog got out, like, we were letting him out, but all of a sudden the mail lady came. She was
Yeah.
doing that. He runs at her and just jumps in the truck.
Yep.
And just starts licking her.
Yeah.
And shit, like, it's like, I keep yelling, like, don't do that, like, stop, and he was still a puppy,
All right,
but
the only problem is the day that there's a sub on the route. That's where the problems lie because if you know how to handle dogs, then it's fine. It's generally fine. Some people really don't like dogs and they freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
And we are given like dog spray and shit like that. And I've never used in 20 years, never had to use it. Even when I've literally been back down the street for 10 minutes by a dog, never used dog spray. But some of these people are so terrified of fucking dogs.
Yeah.
It's like catastrophic. And then they're spraying the dog, and now the dog's in full panic mode.
Yeah.
Ain't even fucking thinking anymore.
Yeah. It's being attacked.
the one mail carrier that used to deliver when I was still at my mother's house would bring dog treats.
Yeah.
And he would, like, get out of the truck, which I know I guess you're not really supposed to do, but he would go to the fence because it was all fenced in, and they were little schnauzers, yappy, and they would bite.
Yeah.
But he would give them
Are the
treats.
schnauzers? No.
Well, my mother's schnauzers. Just keep your hands up. They're just playing. And they have bit many a people and made a lot of them bleed. I
seen it.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's terrible, but a couple of times it was funny because they bit one of her friends in the ass.
Yes.
And it was just fucking hilarious because she was drunk and we were all drunk, but just to see her get bit on the ass was like, hilarious.
In a way, you're not so much worried about the dogs, but like the ownership of the dog.
Yeah.
What is the situation that this dog, because they meld to that.
Well, that's just it. And I'm a big believer in that. It's that however it is that you interact, it's true regardless as to the species that you're talking about. You're going to mimic to a degree the behavior of those around you. And it's true interspecies, and it's true when you're dealing with another species. If you're a certain way, that behavior will be picked up upon. It's the same way as humans raise children. Your children will pick up on the way in which you interact with the world.
That's why my dog thinks he's a cat, because he's around cats much more than the 4 humans that live there.
Exactly, yeah.
I think
I've got cat friends who act like dogs. Makes no sense.
I think especially with dogs, they're so attuned to like, this is going to sound really hippy dippy, but there is something to this, like the vibration.
Yeah, they pick up on your
environment.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. They see the unspoken
They could read a
language.
room.
Yeah, exactly. Read the room. They see your eyes.
So
They see your level of comfort.
Yeah.
If they live in like a full-time level of stress, they're always going to be on a level of stress.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that I didn't mention when we did that episode about my mom's West Day is what happened with the Sapphire after that. She was like a wreck.
Oh, yeah.
And she's still kind of like not in a good place. Like, although a little bit of that is because my sister's in between my mom's house and my sister's house.
It's a level. It's a level of stress.
So
She was already an anxious dog. Like she was already like, we need to get her puppy weed. And now we desperately need to get her puppy weed and she's 11. So like, she's never going to get over this anxiety. But she's
that's like Spectre. Yeah. He shakes for no reason.
Yeah. Whenever I go visit my mom, she jumps. She's so happy to see me, but she's shaking.
Yes.
She's shaking the whole time, and I got to tell her, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay, baby girl. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't know why you're so.
They're highly reactive.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not. So if there's a lot of change in like environment, or if they get moved around or anything like that, that can definitely create that.
Yeah.
So the biggest point, we had 3 huskies that were like their own pack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, they didn't all come at the same time. So there was like between the oldest, there was 4 years between him and the middle one. And then there was like 6 years between the middle one and the next one. So obviously they start dying, and that changes the whole pack dynamic. And it gets like wild from there.
It's stressful.
I saw
That's
that.
the bottom line. Yeah.
I saw that with my mother's dogs because at one point we had 5 schnauzers.
That's
And
the right amount.
oh no, I don't even know if one was the right amount.
My father would say the same.
But they came gradually. We didn't get all 5 at
Yes.
once, but like we had 3 at one time, and then one died, and then
Another
they got
one.
another dog, and then got another one shortly thereafter. But you could see the dynamic kind of shift.
It fucks it all up.
And it was weird because the oldest one of the newest group was the youngest of the oldest group. So it's just seeing that, like, he's like, oh, I gotta kind of be what this, like,
Well,
what
with dogs, there's a hierarchy to its pack mentality.
Yeah.
So, like, when that gets fucked up, it's like any pack in the wild. It's right or might.
There's like a vacuum that has to be filled.
Yes,
And
there is a level of contention for dogs because they're at peace when the hierarchy is set.
Yeah.
When that changes,
Continuity.
yes.
Something very similar happened to that when I was a kid. My brother left for the army. We still had our black lab. And our black lab was kind of like his dog.
Yes.
And so what ended up happening was when it was like the 2 of us together, he was just, we already sparred. Like he would go onto my bed. I had the bottom bunk and he would just like lay there and like, he's a massive dog. So I'd be like, hey buddy, I want to get in the bed too. Like, you can jump back on as soon as I get in.
Yeah.
And he would snap at me because he was like, no, we're like this. He's the alpha. Like you and I were on.
You guys were in like there's indeterminate where you were falling, but you weren't the top.
I had to fight him. I had to legit fight this dog. I had to give him the mandible claw.
And this is
it's so handy, isn't it?
Yeah, Sacco.
Yeah.
Straight up, when we had all 3 huskies and like true like pack mentality, you had as people, because they would test you, like you had to show that you were dominant to them. So like when they would like act against you, I'm not saying like they're biting you or anything, but like dude, they would fucking test it. You would have to like put them on their back.
Yeah.
And like I know somebody's like left, like we would have people come over there like don't understand is the best way to put this. And like when they play rough because it's not just playing, it's also like exerting a little like
it's playing for a point.
Yes.
For a purpose. Yeah.
And also like sometimes if they get riled up, they'll act against you. Not in a bad way, but you got to show them like, motherfucker, I'm above you.
Are you still the alpha? Because that's like that's one of the funnier bits that Bill Burr used to do too.
Yes.
It's just like he was training his dog to fight for the house every time they came in from a walk.
Yes, yeah.
Because the dog would run upstairs and he'd run after him and then they'd wrestle.
Yeah, but it's what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's truly a part of it. If you're going to have like literal pack dogs, you are part of the pack.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, to bring it back to the origination of the conversation, that you want to provide an animal with what it needs and what it wants, well, then what
That's part of
animals
it.
need
Part
is
of it.
the
Part of
fight.
it.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be willing to get down and dirty with it, basically. That's how it
I'm
is.
not saying beat the shit out of your dog,
No,
but
it's,
like
it's rough and tumble play.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that
if
you
they
do
want
if you
to
have a
play,
kid.
You do a little roughhouse.
No, when the fight is done, for sure. It don't hurt the animal.
And largely it just comes down to, and like obviously our first one was the biggest. He was a 95-pound fucking husky.
Yeah.
He was probably part Malamute.
95 pounds in a dog is worth a 400-pound person.
95
People
pounds
are
in
weak.
anything is still a lot, you know.
Yeah.
It's,
Dogs are strong.
But,
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Because they're always testing, especially with dogs like that understand that pack mentality. They're going to test you, and you have to show your place. I'm not saying knock the shit out of your fucking dog. Put them on their fucking back. That's all you got to do.
And also, at the same time, you can do that while you're playing with the dog.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
They're playing with you. All you got to do is take them. Listen, this is not a mean thing.
Yeah.
But make sure they don't win that play session.
Yeah.
And that's just it. That's why the dog is smart in its own way, because one day you won't be able to put that dog on its back.
So
and that's what they're testing for.
Cats have an intelligence I hold more akin to ours, where it's more multifaceted.
It's more
Dogs are
manipulative.
task driven, so
It's about the right here
It's
and
more
now.
linear.
Yeah.
Cats are manipulative.
Well, yes.
They play a mind game.
Dogs
more than
are
a
linear.
physical
Cats
game.
are more convoluted.
Yeah.
Though there is a little part of that we're talking about right now with playing, with rats. I believe they did an experiment where if the dominant rat didn't let the little rat win, at least about, I would say 20% of the time, then the rat would give up and wouldn't want to play anymore. And then it just gets depressed and, it can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So you have to, I'm not saying let the dog win. The dog will go for your throat. Who knows? I don't know what kind of life you live with your dog. But you want the dog to have fun while it's happening.
Part of it is the play.
It is the understanding of how they operate.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And there are dogs that are working class type of pack mentality dogs, and then there are the abominations that are the little ankle biters, and I will never love them, and I'm sorry if you have those, but you're an idiot. I don't know.
That's stupid.
Wow,
That's
that
why
was the loudest beer crack I've ever heard.
That's why cats do it the best, because they control the
It's
game.
nuanced.
They control the game.
Yeah.
People think that they're in control of it. It's the same way as you're talking about the dog. Make sure that you let the dog feel like it's winning sometimes. Let it know that it's a game. Let it know also at the same time that you're in charge and what have you.
They're totally different beasts.
That's what the cat does for the person, because it's important to let the person know that, yeah, you got a little bit of control over this scenario, but just so you know who's in charge. Don't forget that part of it, because I do need the wet food, and I do need the kibble, and I do need the treats. And if you want me to do a little dance for the treats, then I'll do that, right? And you're dancing for me, really, because I'm the only one getting anything out of this. And that's the bottom line. It's that it's a relationship. There's always going to be
Your
that give
joy
and take.
brings me joy.
Yeah, that makes me very happy.
But that's why I pick up my cats from time to time and just cuddle them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they don't like it,
Yeah.
but I do.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So I have one cat. Our stack of cats over here has two cats.
Yeah.
Unto this stack.
Other than the three.
He's got an Israel-Palestine thing going on.
We live in a cat colony, and you will not judge us that way.
No. I'm just quantifying. And then our buddy over here, Sir Moses, has an indeterminate amount of cats. As far as I'm concerned.
It's 7 if you if we're only counting the indoor ones.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
Because we did adopt one that was a feral cat and brought her into the house. She barely came out, just constantly hid. So she didn't want to be in the house.
Right.
So one day we accidentally left the door open and put all the other cats, behind other closed doors. And that cat accidentally got let out and thrived out in the wild there.
I picture like a Benny Hill sketch of cat.
It was more like Faulty Towers.
In the operation of locking all the other cats away, I definitely hear Benny Hill.
Yeah, the soundtrack.
Well, we didn't want the other cats to get out because they weren't going to do nothing
I
out there.
understand, but as far as I understand, wrangling a single cat.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't wrangle. We just left. We brought treats into the other rooms to lock the other cats away.
They fall for that?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, they love the food. Treats are good.
Oh.
Cats love treats.
Melvin
Right?
is not so
he's
easily
not
swayed.
Yeah.
He knows. He doesn't know it's a trap. He just assumes it's always a trap.
Even Furious George, the dumbest friend that I've got,
Well, he's a feral
even
one,
he
too.
doesn't fall for that very often.
He's more of a feral cat than Mr. Fisterton.
I mean, that's very true. Yeah, one of them is smarter than the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
Well, you don't want to be a dumb cat, so make sure that you subscribe to this podcast.
And be a cool cat.
There you go. Be a 5-star cat by leaving us a 5-star review. Check us out on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and hit that notification bell. Hit us up at www.loudanddrunk.com. That is our home base for merch, catch up on the podcast, whole bunch of things over there. We're also on social media. We are at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you enjoyed this podcast, we still have, locals and Patreon, though I don't really do much with them. So if you sign up for them, I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll start working on them.
Hashtag get Dan paid.
Hashtag get Dan paid. So for Justin, Moses, 3 cats in a trench coat, one of them Gary, Mr. Whiskers, and I actually never really got the third name.
Rich.
Rich?
Yeah.
Rich? Really?
That's
A
right.
I didn't name us.
A cat
We're
named,
indoor cats, Dan.
a cat named Dick? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dick
yeah.
cat. Dick puss.
In
pussy
fairness,
dick.
we are
We're at the end of the
Keep it
episode,
moving,
I could
keep
say,
it
right?
moving.
We
Yeah,
are
momentum.
cats.
Yeah, pussycock.
Well, for the... there you go. 3 cats in a trench coat. I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, help control the moron population, spay or neuter a guardian writer.
There you go.
Meow.